Welcome back, everybody, to the South EndZone. Man, what a difference a week makes! Holy cow! First, we gotta do our obligatory. I thought about pouring one out for the Iowa under because it might be dead, but I don't know. Like I think maybe we still revisit it. I just got to see. I got to see a week. I got to take a week off. So moratorium temporarily on the Iowa under. Guys, if you're not gonna hit the under, you deserve to lose. I'm glad you lost. So get your stuff together. You got to do better. I'm sorry, guys, but it's terrible.
I just like for it to be 20-19, which is not even a high scoring game.
No.
For it to be what? It was a 13-0 at half. And we're like, oh, this is, okay. Like we're doing great. And then for Iowa State just rip off like 2 touchdowns like in the third quarter, like immediately. Like for them to post 20 points total between both teams in the third quarter, I was like, well, there goes that. And we were on great pace. 35 is actually like a decent number for like an Iowa involved game, especially in a rivalry game.
They scored 3 touchdowns in like 3 minutes.
Right.
It was like touchdown, touchdown, then a few plays drive.
Dude,
with a touchdown with the running back busted
threw
one
that
off
out of their end zone. They literally like were on their goal line, their own goal line, and ripped that long touchdown. Like,
ridiculous,
unbelievable. But we can't win them all. That's okay. This is not. It's never been a financial advice. We just like to have fun.
Right, exactly. All right, so we go into week 2 for LSU. What is it? They say that the most significant improvement you're supposed to make every year is from week 1 to week 2. LSU loses a heartbreaker in Las Vegas in week 1 to USC, who I'm hoping is a really good USC team as the season plays out because it'll make that sting a little less. But man, I'm sorry, you can't go into your home stadium for your home opener and then let a museum run the ball for 150 yards on you. I'm sorry, but when a dude named Guggenheim is ripping you off for 145 yards and 2 tuds, like it's bad times. And then Jacoby Guillory tore his Achilles. He's out for the year, starting defensive tackle. So LSU just gets even thinner on the defense. We'll see how they turn things around if they can, kind of get their things together. One thing that was a bright spot, Garrett Nussmeier has 8 touchdowns and he has like 17 incompletions on the season so far, through 6 touchdown passes on Saturday night. Nicholls, not much competition, but still the numbers at the end of the season, the numbers are going to be the numbers, right? And so, when they tally the Heisman votes and all that stuff, I'm not saying he's a Heisman candidate, but I'm saying like when you start looking at that stuff at the end of the year, nobody remembers that Michael Penix threw 5 touchdowns against some nobody in the first week. It's just, if he's putting up numbers at the end of the year, it all works out. So a bittersweet thing. I was a little disappointed that it was as close as it was. I think I showed you the score. It was like 21-23 starting the second half. Very ugly. But then LSU pulled away, never gave up another point, really locked up Nicholls after that and kept scoring. So that was good. Garrett Nussmeier had a little cramp in his hamstring. He ended up being fine, played most of the rest of the game. So it was good to see them get out there and kind of exercise some of those demons. But I was really hoping that they would just come out angry and tough and not get gashed up the middle in the run game. And then the other thing is they didn't run the ball all that well. Like this is, Will Campbell before the season, we're going to run the ball. And we've got this alleged best offensive line in football. And they ran 21 times for 64 yards. And that was not because of sacks. Garrett Nussmeier had 2 carries for 13 yards, and Ricky Collins had 2 for 4 yards. They just didn't run the ball well. They ran the ball for 3 yards a carry, and their 2 main backs, Josh Williams and Caleb Jackson, 13 carries for 38 combined yards against Nicholls. That ain't it, man. Come on, guys, get it together. So I did not watch you guys' game. I don't think you watched our game. I'm going to let you take the floor now and give us the breakdown on what went on in the practice scrimmage between Georgia and Tennessee Tech.
Well, I think that we ran a good practice. We got a lot of reps. Everybody looked really good. No, honestly, like, given it's a week 2 game, we decided to play somebody first week, and that's not our fault that Clemson didn't want to play. They talk about what we do with our schedule and whatnot. I think we've always done better when we like to do like the tougher opponent week 1 and then kind of schedule one of these games kind of week 2-ish, kind of, come off of that and kind of I wouldn't call it a break, but like we look good. Carson Beck, 5 touchdowns, tied for most passing touchdowns in a game in UGA history. You talk about just what you can do with a game like this. We had all five running backs getting touches, and we had 15 different receivers catch, at least with one catch.
Damn.
So, and we had Gunnar Stockton step in there and get reps with call it the first team before we started cycling guys through. I think all in all, we look great. They got the ball first, and we forced a quick 3 and out. We returned a punt down to like the 40-yard line, and literally on the first play, that game and the drive, Beck just laces one in the end zone. I'm like, well, that'll work. not so honestly, not too much to really take away. Like I think we all look good from top. It's nice to look good from top to bottom, and then to get those guys in there and to also have them look good. I think you cannot be upset with having a complete game, not having to sweat it out against it, shoot yourselves in the foot to make it a game against a team like this, and to make it a productive and useful game second week of the season.
Right.
That's kind of how I feel about that.
No, that's what you got to do. And look, so I'll say this about LSU playing around with their food with Nicholls. It was kind of a theme this week, right? So you saw some teams, their food ended up biting them. They were playing with a live lobster or something, and it took off a finger. Shout out to Notre Dame. But then, Alabama kind of played around with South Florida, Oregon and Boise State, which, I mean, Boise State's a good team, but, still you had and then Oklahoma State tried to give it away to Arkansas. Oklahoma even played around a little bit with Houston too much. So there was a lot of that to go around. So I hesitate to put too much stock into, as long as you won, you can look ugly right now.
Yeah.
And it's how you turn it on, because I think, we like to think that these guys are like professionals and that they just should come out there and it doesn't matter what the level of competition is.
Right.
You should.
They're all the same age. They're all the same person. They're all the same kind of human. That's what my brother and I said. It's like we're still playing Tennessee Tech. Both teams are made up of 18 to 22 to 23-year-olds that are playing Division I football. They are both the same kind of person. Like they are coming to try to play. It's not like they're coming to roll over. Like they're coming to, like, obviously, like we've seen with NIU, like they don't come to just screw around. But I'm glad because we've struggled. We made UAB look good in the past. We made Kent State look good.
Kent State, yep.
Right. We've done that nonsense before. So like to just have a complete win. Trevor Etienne playing football, almost 100 yards, 80 yards rushing, looks good. I just like when your team can execute from top to bottom, knowing you got so much depth, I think goes a very long way.
Sure.
But yeah, like you're right. These games are not guaranteed. Like it's, a lot of teams, especially in home fans will like, oh, we should have killed them. Oh, we should have this. Oh, we should have that. But like, just because the team is, obviously on paper and should be in fear doesn't mean they're not going to show up to play.
Right.
Like,
well, and also, like the what I was talking about more was from the other side of the coin, which is you're not necessarily guaranteed that Georgia is going to have the same adrenaline. Like you can't manufacture adrenaline and like the feeling that you get when you're going to play Alabama or LSU or Georgia or Ohio State, Michigan, Florida State. You know what I mean? Like it's just different. You go the game last week with Clemson. That's an LSU USC. Different level of energy, different level of that cannot be manufactured. As much as you might think like, oh no, you got to come to play no matter what the level. Yes, you got to be disciplined. You got to not make mistakes. You got to execute well. But that energy and that that hype is completely different. It was like the Tennessee Tech game was effectively like a practice.
It was business. It was taking care of business.
Yes, and you have the stadium and you have the fans and there's some of the pageantry and everything, but it still is not the same. And it's the same way we talk about this with like day games versus night games, how under the lights it's different, like the atmosphere is different, the vibe is different. So I sometimes I hesitate to jump too hard because it'd be really tempting to like start sticking a fork in Alabama about midway through the third quarter in that South Florida game. But you saw what they did. They ripped off like a couple of runs late. Next thing you know, it's like 42-16. It was 17-16. And South Florida had a chance to take the lead. Yeah. And they kept, and multiple chances, and they kept like stalling out and giving the ball back. And then Alabama, turning the ball over, had multiple fumbles, one inside the 10-yard line. So you got to pump the brakes a little bit, much as it might be exciting to dump on some of these schools that we are rivals with. We got to respect that these guys are going to come ready to play when the real competition comes to town. And so you don't put too much stock in these, but it is interesting to see some of the things that can be exposed. That's the thing you got to watch for is like what vulnerabilities may have been exposed in some of these games. One vulnerability that was definitely exposed, I'm going to make this short. I'm going to put 60 seconds on the clock. Disqualified Notre Dame from the college football playoff right now. In week 2, they are eliminated. I don't want to hear about it anymore. I don't care if they win all the rest of their games. Who are you beating? Purdue, Miami of Ohio, Louisville, Stanford, Georgia Tech, Navy, Florida State. Okay, maybe that's something, but it's not really anything anymore. Virginia, Army, and then maybe USC. But even then, like, I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, that might be worthy. If you win out, that might be worthy of keeping you in the top 25 to me, maybe in the top 15, but you do not deserve to be in the playoff. And if you somehow sneak in Notre Dame, you deserve to play on the road. You got to be, 7 through whatever it is. What is it? 5, 6, 7, and 8. You got to be a 9 through 12 seed so that you have to play on the road in your first game. So that's my rant. I'm out of time.
All I got to say is shout out to Northern Illinois. Shout out to their coach. Like, that's the stuff that college football is made of. Like, you knowing that you are the complete underdog. Not a lot of people are even watching your game. Mm-hmm. You have to still get your team pumped up to go out there and play what's supposed to be a better team. And the emotion of a guy like that, your team did it. And just like, on the sidelines, crying, like that's the stuff that college football is made of, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. And listen, Notre Dame, Purdue is licking their chops for your game next week. That's in-state. Right? Yep. That's Indiana. Yeah. You have to go to Purdue now and try not to fumble it again. That's all I gotta say.
Right. Yep. Yeah, it's gonna be popping. And then those games on the schedule. So those aren't extremely difficult games, but they are games Notre Dame can lose. Right. But they're games that Notre Dame should win. And we were talking about this before the show that there were people talking about after they beat Texas A&M that it was basically like a collision course between them and either Florida State or USC. And then after Florida State did what it did, it was looking like, man, they're just going to run through that schedule until they get to USC and have to go to LA and play USC in the Coliseum. Now it looks like they'll be lucky if they're not like trying to just spoil USC's season at that point. Right. The way they're playing right now. So, So another team that played with their food a little bit in Alabama's case, they seem to be a little more skilled with playing with a live lobster or a live crab, where they didn't lose any digits. They didn't get clawed or anything like that. But Alabama did come close to coughing this game up against South Florida. What did you think about Jalen Milroe, like his performance, and the what looks like a vulnerability with Alabama, as has been an issue in the past, of the running quarterback and the read option being a problem for them?
Yeah, I mean, 42-16 is nowhere an indication of the way this game went down. I will say that USF going to Alabama this time around and still making it a dogfight the whole way through. I give USF a lot of credit. They really I mean, they did not take advantage of the opportunities, all of the opportunities they were given.
Right.
I think that Milroe, he fumbled the exchange on the goal line, they could have gone up easily.
Right.
So, I mean, they looked very, like Alabama in the last couple, 10 minutes of that game. But before that, it was like they might lose. So it did not give me a great indicator on what Milroe and his team are going to be like, because they didn't really get to showcase it up until the end.
Yeah.
I was just one thing of note I thought was very interesting is Florida State USF quarterback tucks the ball, runs up the middle, and gets popped by Alabama. DB.
We talked about that during the game. I forgot about that.
Threw the flag, and I'm like, or no, they're like this. The following play is being reviewed.
They didn't throw the flag, but then they looked at it, and you're like, "There's no way." If Saban's on the sideline, there's no way.
Yeah, I was like, "Wait, is Alabama about to get Alabama right now? Right. Is the other team about to get essentially bailed out with a targeting call out of nowhere? Oh, right. They are. And then I think they turned that drive into a field goal. But if Nick Saban's coaching that team, that never gets called. That USF quarterback could have been unconscious for 5 minutes if that wouldn't have gotten that call.
Yeah, shout out to Byron Brown. He played really, really tough.
Yes, he did.
Jalen Milroe was 17 of 27, 2 touchdowns, got sacked 3 times. Honestly, to me,
I wasn't that impressed.
He
194 yards.
And 12 carries for 2 yards, but he had 2 touchdowns. Those sacks were it was 36 yards worth of sacks. So, effectively that would have been 9 carries for 38 yards. If you take out the sack yardage, so not great, but not. And the other thing is I saw him miss some throws, and it's the same thing that we've talked about before, where I just wonder, if when you've got legit DBs and you can bring some pressure, I think he's really good at being the standard. We've seen it a lot with the guys coming out of USC, where they're really good at throwing. Matt Leinart was a great example of this. You're probably a little too young to remember Matt Leinart live, but I remember watching that, and they were hyping him up big time. I was like, I don't see it. He's throwing to dudes that are open by 10 yards.
Right, and that's what I feel about Milroe.
Yeah, Milroe's throwing to these dudes, and then shout out to that 17-year-old kid who he doesn't even turn 18 for another month or two or something.
Dude, ridiculous,
torching dudes.
Yeah,
not that you have to be old to be fast, but geez, 17, holy cow!
Dude can't even vote yet, and he's torching dudes that are 22 years.
Right. Exactly. So, I'm gonna skip ahead because I want to keep this theme of playing with fire. So another one, Oregon-Boise State. We talked about it last week. You brought up Ashton Jeanty and the 267 and 6 touchdowns that he had the week before. Look, Oregon kind of bottled him up a little bit early, but then he started getting his runs, and you started seeing they started mixing up inside, outside, and he got his money, he got his yards, he got his touchdowns. And they gave Oregon every little bit that they could handle.
Right, which we knew they would. This is not it's obviously playing with fire, playing with your dinner, but it is not you and I both knew that Boise State was coming for victory. Well, obviously every team was, but there was a good chance that Boise State could win and win possibly well. And like you said, they gave them everything they were worth and more. And Oregon squeaked out of there, but Jeanty for Heisman, question mark? He's got 8 touchdowns in 2 games, looking like a just impressive player.
Yeah,
I'll say that.
Monster. Yeah, and I think a really good NFL prospect too.
Sure.
No joke. No, he's low center of gravity, good, runs behind his pads, super, quick and shifty, but then also can bust it. If he hits the hole right, he's gone. Oklahoma also played with their food a little bit. Houston's a solid team. They were one of the teams that's been mentioned in the running for possibly sneaking in a playoff spot. But what did you think about? I think we had some expectations for Oklahoma coming into this season, and we had some questions about Arnold at quarterback and some other Venables in that defense, which the defense came to play. it's just that offense, to only win 16, was it 16-14?
16-12.
Or 16-12. Yeah. So not pretty, but they got it done.
Not pretty. They got it done. It's the Houston is not like a slack. I mean, they're not great, but they're not like a slack team coming to play Oklahoma. So like, that's definitely I would call that a trap game on Oklahoma's end. Like, you don't pay attention, you're going to lose type of situation. I mean, ugly, but a win, not too much to say. Arnold still had 174 and 2 tuds. Yeah. I mean, not, it's just ugly. Like that, you would talk about a rock fight. That's the born definition of a rock fight, a 16-12 final.
Speaking of ugly rock fights, let's stay in Oklahoma.
Quarterbacks are throwing for
over in Stillwater. We had Arkansas take a big lead, and it looked like Oklahoma State was going to do what we thought they were going to do last week with South Dakota State, this week with Arkansas, and instead Arkansas just no bladder control, man. No bladder control.
Dude, down their leg. Like, and it's like they were up like 21-3, 21-7 at one point. They were looking good. Like, Green, the quarterback, is, I think, he is, what they wanted. I think KJ Jefferson's a bigger boy, but it's which I think they would want KJ Jefferson to have been. And he looked pretty, like, first half looked very calm, composed, was getting out of the pocket well, was moving the rock down the field. I think it's Jaquinton Jackson is the kid's name. Yeah. Jaquinton Jackson, stud. 149, 3 tuds. Looked legit. I think Arkansas should have a good offensive production for the rest of the season. If Sam Pittman will not, I don't know.
It's just standard SEC, man. Standard SEC. You're gonna have some. You're gonna have some trouble up and down the schedule. There's no off weeks. Even Vanderbilt, they might bring something to the table. So.
And something of note, Oklahoma State wins this game with Ollie Gordon only getting 49 yards and a touch. The kid, Brennan Presley,
came through at the end, though.
Stud. Oh, for sure. The receiver, Brennan Presley, number 80, looks legit. Like, it's like the Oklahoma State is not something to sneeze at, but I think that Arkansas should have won this game, and it should not have turned into an overtime thriller. Taylon Green throws for 416 yards and a loss.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, what more can you say? Like, they pissed that game away in all of the ways.
It's just like KJ Jefferson. He would do the same thing. He'd throw for like 350 and like 3 touchdowns, and then they'd lose in a heartbreaker. Yeah. So the last one that we'll go to that was playing with their food, Bowling Green really tried to ruin Penn State's day.
Dude, Bowling Green didn't have to run the ball. They were gashing them deep on the pass all game long. And it was like, oh, is Penn State going to do what they do and just not want to play like legitimate college football offense? Like, it wasn't even that. It was more of like they could not stop the pass. Like, they were getting gashed by the Bowling Green offense. They were down 17-7 at one point, and you're like, what is going on at home in Happy Valley?
Right.
Bowling Green is like a team that finishes middle to the bottom of the MAC most years, unfortunately, and they are making you guys look pedestrian. Right. They leaned heavy on the run game. Katron Allen, Nick Singleton told you, probably one of the best backfields in college football, combined for 220 yards rushing. They look great. Aller still throws for 202 touchdowns, but they try to cough it up late too. He throws a pick to nobody in the end zone, and you're like, they're going to come down to lose? Luckily, Singleton, being Nick Singleton, gets out of there for a 40-yard touchdown to seal it. But good Lord, was that that's not the game you want week 2 to have to lay out all on the table to beat Bowling Green.
That's why I said allegedly the most improvement you make is from week 1 to week 2.
Allegedly.
There were a bunch of teams that were like, hell with that. Our best improvements will be from week 2 to week 3, I hope. So let's get into the game of the weekend, pretty much, which was Texas and Michigan. This was the one. It kind of lived up to the hype for a little bit, and then Texas, I don't know, about midway through the second quarter or so, just said no. This is this may be the big house, but it's our big house. And then they just destroyed them. Michigan scored a little bit late to make it look a little more respectable than it was, but it was like 34-3 for most of the second half.
Their offense was not impressive. Like what I will say is Michigan has a really solid defense. Like they were able to stall Texas out in the red zone a couple times to force field goals, where Texas was making headway down the field. Donovan Edwards, 8 carries, only 41 yards and no touchdowns. That's not what you want for a team that really is predicated on having that level of running back.
Well, it's like what we saw with Clemson, right? Where like that defense can only do so much for so long. And if you're not producing offensively, and if you don't have Blake Corum and J.J. McCarthy kind of keeping drives alive, even if they're not scoring, to make it to where you
to at least keep the team on the field.
Yeah.
Right. Gunnar Helm, I thought looked very solid, the tight end for Texas. And of course, I think Texas has hit on back-to-back years on having transfer receivers.
Isaiah Bond.
A.D. Mitchell last year from UGA, and then Isaiah Bond this year. Like you can't. Ewers looks great, and you just keep Arch Manning on the shelf. Like it's like he's gonna explode on the scene once they start him. It's gonna be unbelievable. I think Texas looks the part. Like I say, Michigan with a solid defense and no offense, they're not going to be able to do much, in my opinion, this year.
No, it's hard to disagree with that. So wrapping it up, just a couple little brief notes on the SEC. Auburn is still Auburn. I had some hope that they might be able to, get it done against Cal and keep the SEC looking a little more respectable out of conference. Auburn has disappeared now from the college football playoff predictor ESPN model.
Oh no,
LSU still hasn't reappeared, but Auburn is there. I mean, look, I don't even hate LSU not being on there because when you look at their schedule the rest of the way, it's like, man, y'all got a lot of work to do before anybody's going to put any kind of percentage on you guys getting in, because now there's no margin for error. LSU has to win like all but like maybe 1 or 2 games the rest of the way, and it'd have to be like you'd have to have 2 key wins, and you might be able to stub your toe once. But it was weird watching that game because Cal's wearing the yellow helmets, yellow pants, and white jerseys, and I'm watching it in a quad box. And the first time I glanced at it, I was like, is this an old LSU Auburn highlight? Because it just looked like our uniforms.
That's funny.
Playing there in Jordan Hare, but it was not. It was Cal. And it was kind of ugly early on. But I don't know. Peyton Thorne just does not seem like it. It was very ugly to watch. But the guy he was playing with last year, Robbie Ashford, looks pretty good, pretty dangerous. And they've got this Lenora Sellers. It's like this 2-headed monster at quarterback with Lenora Sellers and the guy with the glasses. Yeah, Lenora Sellers and Robbie Ashford, where they do this like 1-2 punch of those guys at quarterback.
They're making it work for right now.
They've got, and their defense played really well. I don't know if it's just like Kentucky not having.
Well, although does not look good.
Brock Vandergrift should be better than that, right? But Kentucky just doesn't look good, and South Carolina's defense looks better. And Rocket Sanders, he's heavier than he was when he was at Arkansas, but he's still fast and he's running with a little bit more power. I think South Carolina. I'm nervous. We're gonna have another show where we preview week 3. But South Carolina looks dangerous, and that's who LSU's got coming up next.
Yeah, I mean, not much. Brock Vandagrift, 3 for 10 and 30 yards. He was the number one quarterback in his graduating class when we recruited him. Can't say I'm sad at this point. Can't say I'm sad to see him go. I gave him credit for sticking around for as long as he did.
Right.
And we send JDJ. He follows him over there on the defensive side of the ball. Kentucky. Not much. I mean, Kentucky, and the worst part is they don't even have Coach Calipari to look for anymore in basketball season. So I don't know what they're going to do with themselves.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. But it was a preview for both of us, and we're gonna tune in later on in the week for our episode where we break down LSU versus South Carolina coming up in Columbia this week. And then are you guys going to Lexington, or are they coming to Athens?
I believe they're coming. No, I think it's one of our other road games. I can tell you in a second. I think we actually have to go to Lexington now that you say that. I'm feeling pretty confident in that. Hold on, I'll tell you here in a sec. We have to go to Lexington, and we're playing at night.
Okay.
We're the 7:30.
Yeah, 6:30 kick or 7:30 Eastern kickoff. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's that. Anyway, we appreciate you guys tuning in, and we are going to, again, like I said, we're going to preview the Week 3 matchups, not just Georgia and LSU's matchups, but some of the key matchups in the SEC and in the top 25 later on in the week. Be sure to tune in for that. For now, this is the South End Zone. I am Chad. He is Tyler, and we are out. Peace.